Exodus chapter 12 is a turning point for the Israelite people. You see, from Exodus 1 through 11, the Israelites had been living as slaves in Egypt. But in chapter 12, that changes. You see, God has been doing great things. You've heard of the 10 plagues, right? Well, if you haven't, go back and read Exodus chapters 7 through 11. You see, God has been showing Pharaoh, He's been showing the Egyptians and the Israelites that there is only one God, and He is that God. You see, He's turned water to blood. He sent frogs and gnats and flies and locusts. He has put sickness on the Egyptians' livestock. He covered the land in darkness, and He covered the Egyptians in boils. And now He has told Moses that He will send one more plague that will finally convince Pharaoh to release the Israelites, the death of all the firstborn children. Before He does this, though, He instructs Moses and the Israelites to partake in a meal of lamb, bitter herbs, and unleavened bread, and that the Israelites are to take the blood of that lamb and paint their doorframes with it. Verses 12 and 13 of Exodus chapter 12 tells us why. God says, "On that same night I will pass through Egypt and strike down every firstborn of both people and animals, and I will bring judgment on all the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. No destructive plague will touch you when I strike Egypt. This blood of the Lamb saved the people of Israel from God's destructive wrath. And this Passover was to be remembered annually, as stated in verse 14. He says, "This is a day you are to commemorate. For the generations to come, you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance." And that command from God has been kept by Jews throughout the millennia. In fact, in just about a week, Jews will stop and partake of the Passover meal. They will sit around the dinner tables. They'll share that meal of lamb, bitter herbs, and unleavened bread as commanded by God thousands of years ago. Parents will share the story of how God freed the Israelites from slavery with their children. And they will share the significance of the lamb and its precious blood that saved their ancestors, as well as the significance of all the other food that they eat, which unfortunately I don't have time to go over right now, but look it up because it's fascinating. As Gentile Christians, we don't celebrate the Passover, although we do celebrate a meal that was born from this ancient tradition. You see, Jesus and His disciples and close friends were all sitting around a table remembering God's salvation of their people from Egyptian slavery when Jesus took that same unleavened bread and said, "Take it, this is my body." And He took some of that wine and said, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many." You see, Jesus took this ancient tradition of Passover, the salvation of the Israelites, and turned it into something different, a new tradition that signifies that again, God uses blood to save His people, the blood of a new lamb, the blood of Jesus. This Lord's Supper or communion that we share is an opportunity for Christians around the globe to remember what Jesus has done for us. It's an opportunity, just like the Passover, to share the story of Jesus with our families, to remember how God saved us from slavery, and to acknowledge God's promise of salvation for us. I would encourage you, the next time you take the Lord's Supper, turn to the person sitting on your left and help them to remember who Jesus was and what He did in His life and through His death. As you share the cup during the next communion, turn to the person sitting on your right and remind them of how, just like that Passover lamb's blood and how it saves the Israelites from death, Jesus' blood saves us from death. Exodus chapter 12 is a turning point for the Israelite people, and God in His infinite wisdom uses the Passover to announce a new turning point in human history. It's no accident that Jesus was crucified so close to Passover. God is showing us that He is, once again, saving His people from slavery and death. And now we celebrate a new meal, and we remember a new lamb. But we can never forget the time that God saved His people from Egyptian slavery, and we can never forget the Passover. Thank you.